This is Andrea, fourth grader. You're going to see two fourth graders today, which does not mean we use Plan B exclusively on fourth graders. It just means those are the two videos I'm showing you today. Tomorrow, you have the potential to see a 4-year-old doing Plan B. You will see a second grader. You will see maybe a 13 or 14-year-old. You may see a 15-year-old, and you may see, what else might I show? It doesn't matter. What I'm trying to do here is show you a range of kids with a range of cognitive abilities so that we are trying to hit everything. Not so easy to do only over the course of 2 days, but I want you to just get a flavor for how it's the same 3 steps, no matter who you're trying to do it with, that you can just vary depending on who that is. You have to be flexible within those 3 steps in terms of what they look like. This is a very straightforward one, just as an intro, with a very articulate kid, not the norm necessarily, who has a decent amount of insight, also not necessarily the norm, but also not a requirement. You don't need a lot of insight for you to know what's making it hard for you to meet a particular expectation. It's a level of insight most 3-year-olds have. Many people don't think a 3-year-old has that level of insight, but they do. So we do this with 3-year-olds all the time. We have a new section on the Lives in the Balance website. Some of you may know about CPS with young kids. There are 4 videos on there of Plan B being done with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And there is a documentary-like film coming to that same page Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific. I'm not into this. I just put things on the website. But we are doing a countdown. What's today, Thursday? I don't know, some of you might know about a Facebook group that we have called the B Team. They are getting an advanced preview of the film today. But tomorrow morning, it will go live at 6 a.m. Pacific. It's about a 90-minute documentary-like film talking to parents and educators of very young kids about their worries about the kids, the skills they think the kids are going to need for the world they are about to inherit, this place we're leaving to them, and how the CPS model can help with a lot of those skills and address a lot of those fears. So very much worth watching. I know that people who've watched it already have shed a few tears over it. They haven't told me where. I don't cry when I'm watching it, but apparently people do. I'm just not sure what part. But that's up at 6 a.m. Pacific time on the CPS and Young Kids. I'll show it to you tomorrow. I'll give you a tour tomorrow, if not today, and you can see where it's going to be. Cool? But this is Andrea, fourth grader, articulate, insightful. In the room with Andrea is her school counselor. That's not who was supposed to be in the room with Andrea. This is a school that was participating in a project that I had going on in Maine about 6 years ago, in which 15 different schools were implementing the CPS model school-wide. Because I live in Maine, I was able to show up and coach them along. I showed up at Andrea's elementary school on this day at the end of the school day to do Plan B with Andrea and her 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Heikkinen. But when I arrived, I found out that Mrs. Heikkinen had gone home sick for the day. So the school counselor agreed to pinch hit for Mrs. Heikkinen so that I would not have wasted my trip to this school. The unsolved problem: difficulty coming back into the classroom after recess. How big a deal could that be, right? I never know until I'm in it, right? Andrea's signal, her frustration response, crying. Andrea's crying almost every day coming back into the classroom after recess. Now, the first thought you might have is, yeah, but isn't crying lucky? Yeah, crying's lucky. We wouldn't be doing this any differently if Andrea was screaming, swearing, hitting, spitting. Her frustration response is crying. I don't care. I don't differentiate based on behavior. Many people do. I don't. I don't care what the frustration response is. I'm working on the problem that's causing it. So we're going to start, this was a marathon empathy step. Don't get freaked out by this, but this was a 30-minute empathy step. I would say the average empathy step is 8 to 10 minutes. Sometimes first time empathy steps, which this is, take a lot longer because kids who I'm told are not going to talk do talk, and I don't want to do anything that causes them to stop talking. So they tend to go for a little. We're going to start at the 16-minute mark. For the first 16 minutes of this empathy step, all you're seeing is the empathy step. That's all we had time for on this day. For the first 16 minutes, Andrea told us that the reason she was having difficulty coming back into the classroom after recess is because she was having disagreements with her best friend on the playground, and it was very upsetting to her to be having disagreements with her best friend. But here at the 16-minute mark, Andrea's in the midst of telling us she's not having disagreements with her best friend on the playground anymore. So apparently, that's not it. We're about to find out what is it. I like this video for 2 reasons. It shows you 4 drilling strategies, so it's a very good demonstration video, and it's a very human moment. And I like human moments. I can't recommend them highly enough. When do I have most of my human moments these days outside the context of my family? When I'm doing Plan B, mostly with kids I've never met. So here we go. Your first video of Plan B. This is not on the website, so unless you've heard me speak before, you have not seen this one. Here we go.
Right. Any other types of fights or disagreements we should know about from the playground, or have we pretty much covered it?
Well, I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. So if things are going better between you and your friend on the playground, does that mean that you've been coming in from recess just fine lately? Yes? Uh-oh. She's shaking her head.
Most of the time I'm coming in fine.
What are you seeing that isn't fine?
I'm not seeing it, but
Someone's
teacher.
seeing it.
The
What
teacher
are you
is-
hearing about what's still hard about coming in? And by the way, it's not that you're not, we know you're being straight, right?
Right.
It's just that we're hearing something. I'm not hearing something else, but we're hearing something else. Okay? Want to hear what we're hearing? Because maybe you could talk about that a little.
She doesn't look like she wants to hear what we're hearing. So this is a good example of a kid not responding so well to a discrepant observation. Once again, when you meet Bobby tomorrow, you'll see a kid who couldn't care less. But Andrea clearly cares.
Either in tears or angry and have a hard time once you're inside to get and transition into your work.
Well, actually, I've never been in tears in a very long time or angry.
Okay. Okay.
That was like, the fighting and all that stuff was
Way back meaning Monday,
Like-
or way back meaning,
way back, like a couple of months ago.
Here comes another discrepant observation.
because even we have a group, a friendship group on Wednesdays. And during Wednesday's focus group, our friendship group,
Andrea's in.
yeah, that Andrea's in with a bunch of other girls. Andrea expressed that she's been getting upset from the playground into the classroom.
Not always, but sometimes.
We're not playing gotcha here. We're not trying to catch Andrea in a lie. And to tell you the truth, we don't really care whether it's always or sometimes. Whether it's always or sometimes, we still have a problem that needs to be solved. Okay, let's go.
So still sometimes, yes.
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 And the sometimes that you've still been upset, what's that mostly been about?
I don't really know. One night, when I was at my house, I told my mom and dad that they asked, why are you always upset? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm always upset. I try forgetting about it and like calming down or something. But I don't know why I'm always upset.
Got it. Do you think it's the same, so sometimes you don't even know why, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that some of it is the type of stuff we were talking about before, which is problems with your friend on the playground, or maybe something else?
No, it's like, we don't have any problems. I don't anymore have any problems with the playground, but I'm just upset. It's so weird. I'm like, so upset. It's like, something went wrong, but nothing went wrong during the playground.
What do you make of that?
Hmm?
What do you think's going on?
I don't really know. I'm like a girl who's always upset. It's a little weird. I'm like, I can't like control it. Sometimes I'm really upset. I don't know why.
Is one of the times that you are especially likely to be upset is coming in from recess?
Yes.
So now that is interesting, don't you think?
Yes. I'm trying to figure out why I'm not so upset all the time. But this is not part of recess, but I think I should tell you guys this. When I was in my classroom, my friends started talking about me, Spanish, and my own island. My island, the place where I first lived,
Where was that?
Puerto Rico.
Got it. Okay, so go on.
Well, my friend Jenny, it's like she started talking about it. I felt sort of sad and upset. I don't know why. I said, "Excuse me, Jenny." I asked Miss Hagen if I could go to the bathroom. And I figured out that when they talk about my own place, it kind of makes me a little sad and upset. And I figured that out a couple of days ago.
When people talk about Puerto Rico, you get sad and upset?
Mhm.
How come?
I don't know, it's like we moved away.
Maybe there's something that's upsetting about that. How old were you when you guys moved?
5,
So you still remember it. How old are you now?
8.
Oh, so it was only 3 years ago. Do you miss it? Yeah.
But the thing I'm glad about is this summer we're going back.
Forever or just to visit?
Visit.
Mm-hmm. So you get to see it again. Have you been back since you moved?
No. But lots of friends came and visit.
Lots of friends are going to come visit when you go?
No.
Oh, lots of friends come here and visit?
Yeah. And it was pretty happy because I hadn't seen them in a very long time.
So there's a lot about talking about Puerto Rico that could be upsetting for you, yes?
Yeah, but when she started talking about that,
Yeah.
I'm like, I felt all sad and upset. I think it was because I didn't have my friends near me, and I didn't live in my old house anymore. So I think it was that's part of that. Sometimes I'm upset about.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I think it's either making you sad talking about it right now. Yes.
Sometimes I think about it, and I think sometimes that's why I'm upset, because when I'm upset, I'm like, I remember PR, that's abbreviation for Puerto Rico. I'm like, so sad and upset.
So you get upset sometimes when you think about PR. Yes. Could be something you're thinking about when you're coming in from recess, yes?
Yes.
So here's what you're saying. You don't think what's going on during recess is making you upset when you're coming in anymore, because it sounds like you're not getting mad at each other at recess anymore, right? Thinking about Puerto Rico could be making you upset.
Yeah, because I always think about it.
Do you think about Puerto
Yes.
Rico a lot?
Almost always.
Do you?
Almost all the time, except when I'm working. But when I'm not working or anything, I think about it, and that's when I usually line up. And I'm and then I remember it in the line, and that's why I come sad erase or an English face or something into the classroom. And I'm like, okay, Andrea, it's time to work. Just calm down and forget about it.
Did you know that about Andrea?
I did not.
Me either. Of course, I just met this, so I wouldn't have, but
I didn't know it was so difficult for
to be away from Puerto Rico.
Or to even talk about it.
But it's clearly upsetting for you. Should we, I don't want to have you get upset if you don't really feel like talking about it, but should we talk about? I mean, I was going to say you missed Puerto Rico, but I don't know if that's a good way to summarize what's upsetting about it. Do you think you miss it, or is it just upsetting just to think about it?
It's like both of them. I miss it, and that's the sad emotion, but when I think about it, it's the upset emotion because I left everything that I had behind.
Like what?
Like my first best friends, my old school, my little house, and my neighbors that were very special to me. And it was pretty upsetting.
I can see. This is all very good to know. So let me see if I can summarize. Then tell me if there's anything else, right? It sounds like since you are not getting into big disagreements with your friend on the playground anymore, that the main reason you might come in is because you're thinking about Puerto Rico and it's making you sad.
Well, I don't cry like I don't have tears out of my eyes. I'm like crying inside my body.
Yes.
It's like I'm so upset.
How does the teacher know that Andrea's upset?
You know?
Sometimes tears, but then other times just body language and facial expressions.
And you know what? Your facial expression does kind of give you away. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you're happy, it's pretty obvious, but also when you're starting to get upset, it's pretty obvious, even if you don't have tears coming out of your eyes.
Yeah, but sometimes, I don't know how, but sometimes I'm like, I'm upset, but I don't look upset. I went to the mirror and I was upset and I actually looked pretty happy.
Really? So you can hide it sometimes.
Yes.
Got it. So, one of the reasons, though, that you might be upset, even if it doesn't look like you're upset, coming in from recess, is because you're thinking about Puerto Rico and it's making you sad. Yes. Another reason, but it's not really so much true anymore because you guys seem to be working it out, is if you had a disagreement with your friend.
Yes.
Yes. Besides those two things, is there anything else that could be hard about coming in from recess? Or anything that you might be getting upset about when you're coming, or already be upset about when you're coming in from recess?
I don't really know. It's like, I'm upset all the time, but I don't know what's making me upset. Sometimes it's not Puerto Rico, or it's not like
Sometimes
me
what?
having, sometimes it's not Puerto Rico, or me having problems with my friends. I just end up upset.
Got it. So, you know what? I think that we know what we need to, we understand what we need to understand. Okay? You know a lot about yourself. Did you know that?
No?
I don't know too many kids your age who know as much about themselves as you do. You know a lot about yourself. Pretty cool. I think it wouldn't be bad, though, to continue this another time, probably not with me,
Okay.
with your teacher, so she knows how she should respond to you.
That's not her responding to what I'm saying. There was noise out in the hallway.
If she sees that you're upset, because she doesn't want to ignore it if you don't want her to, right? She doesn't want to do anything that would make things worse, but she also doesn't want you to think that she's like, doesn't care, right? So it would be good, even if you don't think your teacher can help you, and maybe you'll think about that a little bit, okay? If you don't think your teacher can help you, at the very least, she would like to know what she should do, so you don't think she's just ignoring that you're upset, and so that she's not doing something that makes it worse. What do you think? You think what?
Go about both of us because
Perfect.
sometimes when I'm upset and then I'm like waiting for Miss Highton to like come over to me. And I haven't noticed that I don't have a mad face. I'm like having a happy face. I'm like, I don't even know that because I don't even feel it. And I can't see myself. And she doesn't come over. But I'm like, why is Miss Highton not coming over?
So sometimes you would like her to come over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just don't really like people to know that I'm having problems.
Got it. So it would be good if you wanted her to know, and if you wanted her to come over, it would be good if that could be done in a way that doesn't let the whole world know that you're upset. That's what you're saying. Here's the person who's going to take it from there, okay? But not now, another day, okay?
You did a really nice job. Thank you.
And that's the end of that one. So, why do I like that video? It was only an empathy step. You saw 4 drilling strategies. I hope you noticed them as you were seeing them. And what do I mean by human moment? Well, this is kind of touching. I have my human moments when I'm doing Plan B by number 1, having a kid talk to me that I didn't think was gonna. Hearing things that we didn't know, big. Having a kid, and her demeanor did change over the course of those 15 minutes. She became much more comfortable. That's human. Having a kid feel heard. All human stuff. All something that happens every time you do Plan B. Pretty cool. You're not just solving a problem. All right. Glad you saw 4 drilling strategies. I will cover the other 4 tomorrow. I want to very quickly cover the other 2 steps today, and then we are going to watch our last video of the day. So there's stuff we're skipping. We'll do all this tomorrow. The define it all concern step. I'm not sure. Oh, yes, I am telling you things you don't know. The define it all concern step is where, as you do already know, the adult is entering their concern or perspective into consideration, but in a way that doesn't cause the kid to feel like their concern or perspective is being dismissed or disregarded. So, as a general rule, you want to start your define it all concern steps with words like, the thing is, or my concern is, but not, well, that is all well and good, but... That is all well and good, but is the sound of a kid's concerns about to get blown off the table. You can put all that work into getting kids' concerns on the table just to blow them off in the next step. As I'm always telling people, and I sure do wish our politicians knew this, there's plenty of room on the table for both sets of concerns. There's no reason for anybody's concerns to be getting blown off the table. That just makes people scream louder. What's hard about this step? The fact that adults frequently don't have the slightest idea what their concerns are. That's because they've often already moved on to their solutions, which they are often busy imposing. How are you going to know what your concerns are? Your concerns answer the question, why is it important that this expectation be met? If you know the answer to that question, you know what your concerns are. As I'm always telling caregivers, though, if you don't know why it's important that this expectation be met, then I don't know why you have this expectation. But I'm going to make this easy. Adult concern, the universe of adult concerns fall into just one or both of 2 categories. How the unsolved problem is affecting the kid, and or how the unsolved problem is affecting other people. And within those 2 categories, it's almost always about health and or safety and or learning. Those little guidelines have made this the easiest and the fastest of the 3 steps. You'll see a define adult concern step in about 3 minutes. the invitation, and we'll be covering these again tomorrow. The invitation, as you already know, is where you are collaborating with the kid on a solution. But as you also already know, critically, the solution has to meet those two criteria. Got to be realistic, got to be mutually satisfactory. What's the hard part of this step? The wording. You want to start your invitations with the words, I wonder if there's a way. Now with Plan A, which we skipped, Plan A starts with the words, I've decided that. So there is a very big difference between I've decided that and I wonder if there's a way. Now here's what it would sound like generically. I wonder if there's a way for us to do something about one party's concerns, and also do something about the other party's concerns. You are then, believe it or not, so you've just recapped the concerns of both parties. You are then giving the kid the first crack at the solution. Not because it's the kid's job to solve the problem, it's y'all's job to solve the problem. Y'all are partners, y'all are teammates, but it is very good strategy to give the kid first crack. It lets the kid know beyond a shadow of a doubt you're actually interested in their ideas. Plus, if all you're doing is spoon feeding the kid ideas, when do they learn how? Not by spoon feeding. By the way, if the kid doesn't have any ideas, I'm sure you will, but they probably will. Let's watch a define it all concern step in an invitation. You're about to meet another kid, another fourth grader. That's because the only people we do Plan B with are fourth graders. This is Mrs. Lang, the school principal, and Mr. Marley, the resource room teacher, and Anthony. I like Anthony. Actually, there's not many kids. There aren't any kids I don't like. Adults occasionally, but kids, it's very hard for me not to like a kid. And I've worked with some kids who it was not easy to like. This is Mrs. Lang and Mr. Marley's first Plan B ever. This is another school that was participating in this project that we had going on in the state of Maine. 15 different, and by the way, this could happen in Washington State. I think waOSPI is going to make this happen. All eyes on waOSPI. Right? I'm actually pretty confident about that. And I'm also pretty confident that Lives in the Balance will create resources that are specific to Washington State. Just need to talk to waOSPI about it. I was calling waOSPI waOSPI, and why not? Why would it not be waOSPI? But I learned in Yakima that you don't say waOSPI in Washington State. Not on this side or the other side. This I know, right? Apparently, for the last 2 days, I've been on the other side. But now I'm on this side. Yes? There's a song about that. What? I'm in Tacoma. Come on, give me a hard one. Ask me the name of the pass that I went through yesterday. I have no idea. What city's the state fair in? Don't tell me. I'm going to guess it's not on this side. I'm going to guess it's on the other side. Wrong? How could this be? I'm going to guess. I have no idea. Okay. P-U-Y-A-L. I have no idea. Well, that's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to embarrass myself. Really? That's where the state fair is? Okay. Anthony's in the 4th grade. He has a trauma history. At no point did Anthony say anything about his trauma history. We were talking with him about this unsolved problem, which is difficulty, the global problem, this would be clumped, is difficulty staying in the general ed classroom. basically for the whole school day. But that would have to be split to each subject area that he's having difficulty staying in the classroom for, right? And so we split it and started with difficulty staying in the general ed classroom for math. It turned out that, and this is typical, but not expected, what we found out was hard about staying in the general ed classroom for math was true of every other subject. It's too noisy and too crowded. I'm not showing you the empathy step. Number one, we don't have time, and number two, it's not that riveting. It was a 15-minute empathy step, too noisy and too crowded. We found that out in the first 2 minutes. We found out that that applied across the board. The next 13 minutes was us trying to find out if there was anything else. There was not. It's too noisy and too crowded. Got it? And math is the noisiest and most crowded of them all. I'm going to start here about at the 13.5-minute mark near the end of the empathy step. I consider the highlight of this video to be the define adult concerns step. The define adult concerns step of this video helps me make some points that would be a whole lot harder to make if I didn't have this video. So here we go, 13.5-minute mark. We're almost done with the empathy step. That's pretty close, not that close. Close enough. That's close. Here we go.
Concentrate on what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. So just one more. I don't want to beat this to death, but I'm still trying to get the picture in my head about how this is hard for you. Are there certain times when it's always the same number of people in the room, right? So crowded, we can't get away from. Are there any times when it's more, am I right? It's always the same number of people in the room?
Yes.
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Are there any times when it's noisier than others?
Some of the time.
Say again?
Some of the time.
What activities or what subjects tend to be noisier than others?
Math,
Noisy?
because everybody's talking to each other. Crowded is meeting time.
Is what time?
Meeting time. Everybody
Meeting
gets
time.
on the carpet and
Then crowded is especially bad.
then desks are so close, that's crowded. Yeah.
So math is noisy, meeting time's crowded. Yes?
And then the desks are so close, I feel like I'm gonna go like this.
Can you think of any times, any subjects, any activities where the noise and the being crowded, it's either not that noisy, or at least the noise and the being crowded doesn't bother you so much? Because you mentioned math, it would bother you. Meeting, it would bother you.
Music, it would bother me.
Music would bother you. Are there any times when you're sitting there when it wouldn't bother you so much? Because math, music, and meetings are not the whole day.
Reading,
Reading, it does not bother you. Why, is reading a quiet activity?
close my head.
Clears your head. And is reading quiet? Everybody's sitting there
Well, it
reading.
can be loud, but it clears my head from everything else.
Got it.
I love books.
Oh, so even if it's noisy and crowded, you can read and it'll clear your head. Good to know.
That was the end of the empathy step. I should mention, I'm going to be pointing out to you that Mrs. Lang and Mr. Marley are doing a few things wrong. They're newbies. That's not me judging them. They've never done this before. Newbies make mistakes, right? Even, as you'll see tomorrow, the guy who originated the model makes mistakes. So mistakes are not that big of a deal. You just want to be aware of them. But they're going to be making mistakes. I'll point out mine to you tomorrow. I'll point out theirs to you today. That doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. These are great educators and they're learning. But we're now about to enter the define adult concern step. Once again, this is where I get to make some points that would be very much harder to make if I didn't have this video.
Let's put your concern on the table.
Okay.
What's our concern about Anthony being in the smaller room, which is the unsolved problem we started with?
Yep. Is that I want all my students every day to be learning. And so if you're in kindergarten, I want you to be learning all of the curriculum, all of the reading and writing and math. And if you're in 4th grade, I want you to be learning all of the math and reading and writing and music. And I'm afraid that when I go in there so much and I see that you're on the computer so much, I think, how can you be getting that work done? So that's my concern, that you're not getting all of the work and you're not being exposed to all those great things you need to do so that you can go and be a great fifth grader.
Now, this is not the best part, but Anthony's about to put a solution on the table. He's never done Plan B before either. So I'm not going to look at him and say, Anthony, you don't put solutions on the table in the define it all concern step. But what I am going to do is steer the conversation back to their concerns after he's through putting his solution on the table.
That's my concern.
Like I said, probably Miss H's because it's so small.
You're coming up with a solution.
I'm coming up with something that I could probably do. So Miss H's has a big room, not many people. Can get my work done. It's not noisy. And then just get break times, like 5-minute break times in between everything.
So your concern is that you want to make sure that Anthony's getting work done. I'm a little in the dark about something. It sounds like Anthony can go to the smaller room when he wants.
Correct.
Your concern is that if he's there too much and on the computer too much, he won't be getting work
Right.
done.
Well, the plan that we came up with,
Here we go. Mrs. Lang just said the plan that we came up with. We are about to find out whether we included he. If we did include he, then it was collaborative. If we did not include he, then it was unilateral. I think you know where this is heading, but let's find out.
well, we talked a little bit with Anthony.
If we only talked a little bit with Anthony, I got a bad feeling about this one, but let's play it out.
But the plan that we had developed was to offer him starting his day with Mr. Marley's room.
Yes.
And having his schedule, right? And then you could choose either Mr. J's room or
Wait. Mr. J's room is one of the 2 general ed 4th grade classrooms in this school. It's one of the 2 classrooms that's too noisy and too crowded.
Mr. or
Miss-
Ms. Fowler's room.
Ms. Fowler's room is the other general ed 4th grade classroom, also too noisy and too crowded. Now I'm starting to think they didn't talk with Anthony enough. Otherwise, they would have known that they were too noisy and too crowded, and those would not have been part of the solution. All right, but let's keep listening.
And you choose the subjects that you're going to spend time in. And then there's some reward time during the day.
Not that. You mean we're going to come up with a solution that does not address Anthony's concerns and therefore cannot work, but we're going to reward him for doing it? Adults do this all the time. And then, because we think we're doing the kid a favor by incentivizing them to do a solution that they know isn't going to work, we get irritated when they don't do the solution that didn't have a snowball's chance in the first place. But let's keep listening.
But what's happened since we had that plan in place is that I think since November,
End of November, yes.
end of November, you've only chosen to be out in those classrooms 6 times.
This solution's not working. This is February. And you know why it's not working. It wasn't working because of what they didn't know. But you do now know because I told you what we learned in the empathy step.
For 6 days, but just for 6 subjects. And so, and then when I talked to Mr. Marley about how much work you're getting done in class, he's saying that maybe 20 or 30% of the time
Yes.
getting work done. So that's my concern. That you were given those 2 choices.
Choices. Are choices plan B or are choices really double-barreled plan A? Choices are double-barreled plan A. They're when you're saying to the kid, you can do this unilateral solution or you can do that unilateral solution. We're giving you the choice. That's not plan B.
And that the work isn't getting done. And so that when he's choosing to be in the resource room setting, he's not getting his, and it was kind of like a temporary plan that we had that we were hoping that we would get Anthony to get more excited.
You didn't hear the empathy step, but at no point in the empathy step did Anthony say that he wasn't excited. And therefore, a solution aimed at helping Anthony get more excited couldn't possibly work because unexcited is not what's getting in his way. It's too noisy and too crowded. Why are we trying to get him more excited?
Thought maybe he would choose Miss Fowler's room a bit more.
Why would he choose Miss Fowler's room more? It's too noisy and too crowded, but we didn't know that. I'm not being critical. I'm just making some points.
Or he would
Miss Fowler is not the resource room?
No, Miss Fowler's in another fourth grade. We have 2 fourth grades, and so
I
since
really do think that Miss H is a.
yeah,
Who's Miss H?
Ms. H is another
Special education.
special education room.
And that's the smaller room we're
Yes,
talking about here?
and that's the one that Mr. Marley is in one resource room, but this is a specific program that most of the kids that are in that program are in there all day. Whereas Mr. Marley's room is only for subject areas.
Where's Anthony going?
Right now, he's going to me.
Which is not the full day.
Which is
Yes.
not but he's basically making it a full day program because
Anthony
Anthony's
is.
choosing.
He's staying.
He's staying.
Got it.
And what was happening before is that when we were kind of forcing him to stay in his class,
What happens when you force the Anthonys of the world into solutions that cannot possibly work? It gets ugly, and that is predictable. That's the frustration response. Quick story, I had a bone marrow biopsy about a week and a half ago. We hope it's nothing. If it's something, I'll deal with it, but we hope it's nothing. When the painful, if you haven't had one, the painful part is when they're injecting the needle to put in the lidocaine, which is like Novocaine, right? That hurts. But what was interesting, my daughter, interesting Freudian slip. I don't know what it means, but I'll have to think about it. Later, my doctor had a very good bedside manner. What if that means something? Do they all mean something? My doctor had a very good bedside manner. He said to me, because then he stuck in the needle to extract the bone marrow. This is almost as disgusting for me as the flesh sludge of the McDonald's hamburger. But he's injecting the needle to extract the bone marrow, and he keeps saying, "Tell me if it hurts." And it did. So I kept saying, "That still hurts." And when he heard that it hurt, he just injected more lidocaine because it's not supposed to hurt. It was interesting because I was thinking to myself, isn't that what concerning behavior tells us? That it still hurts? That I need more than what you're giving me? That's what it tells you. That's the kid's way. And now here's the good thing. I'm pretty good at saying it still hurts. I'm laying there on my stomach and I'm saying it still hurts. If I didn't have certain skills, I would have sworn at him big time and called him a few choice words. That's the difference between me having skills and somebody who doesn't. But the key is that it still hurts. That's what they're saying. My newest analogy. If I didn't have a bone marrow biopsy, I wouldn't have had that analogy. Let's keep going.
getting into all of these.
And that's not good either.
No.
So
that
now
wasn't a
here's the
solution.
question.
Like I said, it's noisy and crowded,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
just
Absolutely.
All right, so at this point, Anthony's fairly convinced. My concerns aren't going to get addressed here. Now, Anthony's actually not even accustomed to having his concerns get heard. So this is the ultimate setup. Now they've been heard and they're not going to get addressed. So it is at this point that I often have to tell the Anthonys of the world, buddy, don't worry. We haven't forgotten about your concerns. And in fact, we're about to address them. But guess who I have to reassure even more often than the kid? The adults, who are petrified that if they enter somebody else's concerns into consideration, their own concerns will be dismissed or disregarded. Now I ask myself, this is a rhetorical question. I think we know the answer. Why are there so many adults in this world who are petrified that their concerns are going to be dismissed or disregarded? I have a one-word answer to that rhetorical question. Childhood. A childhood filled with plan A. All right, let's see if Anthony can help us solve this problem. You got to love Anthony. Isn't Anthony great? Here's what I like best about Anthony. He actually cracks a lot of jokes, but his facial expression never changes. You gotta love a kid like that.
So I'm just gonna push this faster than I would normally.
Okay.
Okay, just because of time.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what I'm wondering if there's a way to do is, during the times when Anthony is having trouble staying in the larger class, which I think sound pretty predictable, how can we make sure he's still getting work done in the smaller class, which it sounds like he's allowed to go to, right? Do you guys still want him spending time in the larger class?
That's the goal.
So you would like him to be in the larger class? I'm just clarifying.
Right, yeah.
Now what I'm doing is I've gotten to the invitation and I'm thinking to
Yeah.
myself, I'm missing some details here,
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
You would like Anthony to be in the larger class at least sometimes.
yes.
Do you have a idea about how long that sometimes is, or are you not so worried about that so long as Anthony's in the larger class some of the time?
Well, my goal
is usually an indication that the adult is about to enter a solution into consideration that is not mutually satisfactory. And Mr. Marley is not about to disappoint. So after Mr. Marley tells you what his solution is, remembering that math is the noisiest and most crowded of them all, you'll understand why, as the facilitator of this process, I had to let Mr. Marley know, nope. And you'll hear he gets it.
And I think because Anthony's a very bright boy and a good student, is for the literacy piece and for the math piece, particularly those areas. So those
You
two,
would like him to be in the larger class for those?
yes.
And Anthony has said to us, math, forget about it, right? Anthony's saying too loud, too crowded.
Remember when you used to say I'm like a boomerang?
Yes, I have got you in my boomerang.
Because he'd throw me out of his room
And you come back.
and I'd come right back.
Let's not use throw. I know it's a metaphor. I would gently guide you to class and you'll come back repeatedly.
You know why I do that? It's called stalling. I stalled.
Stalling.
I was.
Stalling. Many people hear the word stalling, and the next word that pops into their head is manipulative. I hear stalling, and I think lucky. Stalling is just another way in which kids let us know I'm having trouble meeting that expectation. I'll take stalling over hitting, screaming, swear. Stalling's lucky, but I wouldn't call it manipulative.
That's why I'm acting like a boomerang.
So this, like a lot of problems, becomes more complicated than what we learn about it.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's what we know the ingredients of a solution need to be, right? I don't know if Anthony's staying in the large class for math. That one sounds, I don't know.
Right.
But I wonder what things Anthony could stay in the larger class for. That would help you guys feel like your concern is being addressed.
Reading,
Writing,
and
reading,
geography.
geography. The list just grew.
Yes.
I love it. And what things we know Anthony's going to be out for. Now, I don't, you guys would know better than me what's going to be realistic.
Yeah.
Although it sounds like now, so Anthony would be spending out, this is your plan, but we've got to find out if the plan flies. What would you be out for? Out of the big class for?
Math. Math. And what else do they have?
And they do like the read aloud piece,
Read aloud.
Morning meeting.
morning meeting.
Morning meeting. No.
Look at them telling him what he's going to be out for. They want him to be in. They're telling him what he should be out for. You know what that says to Anthony? We heard you. And he's about to prove, I heard you too.
And geography kind of back and
Science
forth.
I can do. Science I can do.
In the big room?
I love science.
In the big room?
Science.
So this has become very interesting. Because all of a sudden, I'm hearing that Anthony's not going to be out of the, I think my sense is that it would be good for this not to be random and spur of the moment choice. This may be as far as we can go today, given our time constraints, but I'm delighted to hear that there are actually quite a few things Anthony could be in the big room for. and there are some select things that he wouldn't prefer to be in the big room for. Tell me, if that was what we were running with, and I'm rushing,
Mhm.
if that's what we were running with, how would you guys feel about that? Anthony proposed it, so clearly it would be okay with him, I think. How would you guys be with it? Yeah, that's a lot.
I'd be very proud of you. I think you'd do great with that.
Absolutely.
So you guys get to decide, do we want to sign off on that right now and put it in place tomorrow? Or is there some more fleshing out that would need to be done?
The only other part of it at the moment that seems like we'd want to make sure of is when Anthony's out of the big class,
Mhm.
Ms. Lang's concern is that she wants to make sure you're getting the work done, even when you're out of the big class, you know?
Maybe Mr. Marley can make me do my work, and then after that, I can have some free time.
That sounds like a kid who's been trained up on contingencies. If you do that, you get this. Don't worry, that's just his training. He wasn't born thinking that. He'll come around to solutions instead of contingencies if we do this enough.
So there's a little bit more, there's some flourishes to the solution that we need to get squared away.
Right, flesh out.
But Anthony has shown me that you want to solve a problem, Anthony's going to help you out.
Yeah.
And he can give you very good information about what's getting in his way.
I don't get half of the words that he was saying.
What I just said, that might have been on purpose, but let me say, you are very good at telling us what's the matter. So far, so good.
So far,
You're very good at thinking of solutions.
so far.
I think that's all I said.
And that's the end of that one. So now you've seen a define it all concern step and an invitation. You've seen an empathy step. You now have what this looks like and all of the key themes and potential paradigm shifts. I'd say that's plenty for day one. Tomorrow, so now you've got the basics. Tomorrow we will jump into the nuances. Tomorrow is movie day. I'm going to try to make the best way for me to show you the nuances is by showing you as much plan B as we have time for me to show you, telling you what you're seeing. They are less straightforward than what you've seen today, but I have lots of videos that help me take you to the next level. I'd say we're good for one day, wouldn't you? You all have a nice evening. See you back tomorrow.